guys, welcome back to Crafty Quilting Designs. My name is Karen and I hope you're having a fantastic day. So today we've got a really small project. Well, hopefully it's a small project and it doesn't go on too lengthy because I can go into detail sometimes. At least that's what I've been told. We will be making this crossbody bag and with a zipper and also some slip pockets. So this is our project today. We're not going to use any sort of hardware for the handles, but we're going to just zip it and stitch it right into the corners. So this is our project. So let's get right into it. Alright, so for our bag, what we're going to need, and I'm going to have all my details here written down so I can explain to you. The fabric we're using today is called a Tally-Ho vintage print and it's absolutely beautiful. And it's a copy of a print from that Tally-Ho print from 1948. So we're going to need two 13 by 10.5 for our front and back panel. So that is the front of the bag and the back of the bag. We're also going to need some lining fabric, which is going to be 12 by 10, and I'm going to be using this brown floral ditzy print here for our lining. We're also going to be needing some fabric for our pockets. So for that, again, I'm going to go with, obviously, for the same fabric, and this is for our slip pockets, and the measurement you need for that is 9 by 10, and I'm working in inches here just so that you know. Our zip length, and I've chosen a red one for mine, is going to be 13 inches, and our handle, which I've slightly prepared, or more or less gone through the process of preparing, our handle we're going to be needing, I'm going to be using two obviously for this particular handle, so two types of fabric. So we're going to have the front fabric, which is the original fabric for the front of the bag, and also the lining fabric. So I'm explaining to you exactly how you need to do that. Also, we're going to be needing some interfacing, and I've already put the interfacing on my bag here. So this is my back panel, okay, and I've already, as I said, put the interfacing there. So that is our interfacing, and to put the interfacing on, you can actually go back and look at my other bag. I think it's called my Cottage Garden tote bag, and I explain in detail about the interfacing and how to actually use that, so you can go back and have a look at that video very quickly. Okay. Excuse me. So that's that one there. You also need the same interfacing as well for the front panel as well. Okay, and the interfacing side, which is by length and size, sorry, is 12 by 10. Now, in order to make this particular handle for our crossbody, all I did was take the front of the front fabric for the handle, and the handle length and width is 2 inches by 14, and I've placed them front sides together. So that is my back there, and that is my front panel, but as I said, I've placed them front sides together. You're also going to be needing some interfacing as well for this particular handle, and the reason why I've added some interfacing is because it makes it a little bit more sturdier and makes it just rigid so that you can hold this bag a lot more. It's a little bit more stable, if you know what I mean. It's not just very soft in your hand, because obviously it's a fabric bag, but we need something to make it a little bit more structured and stable in there. So what I did was just stitched it front sides together along both of the edges, and I did a 1/4 inch seam around there. Now to turn it right side out, what I usually use is a nice big pin, yeah, and I will then stick it on, or I should stick it, I'll pin it on one side of the fabric, and obviously I will then turn it, push it inside, and then put it through in this particular way so that it goes through and I can pull it through. on the right side. So it does take a couple of minutes, so you can go ahead and do that once you've done yours. All right, so I'll put that to the side for now. But what we're going to carry on with is our slip pocket, and so we need to make that first. And so my slip pocket, as I said, is 9 by 10, and I've already have mine here. And I'm going to fold it right sides together. So I'm folding that right sides together, and I'm going to finger press it, so it doesn't really have to be neat and tidy in the sense that you don't have to iron it. Finger pressing is just fine. And we're going to stitch all the way around, but we're going to leave an opening so that we can turn it right side out. So I'm just going to average roughly about 4 to 5 inches, so that once I've stitched all the way around, so we're going to stitch from the first X here all the way around and stop them. We're going to do a backward stitch just to ensure that it's nice and stable, and I'm going to do that right now. And I'm just going to pivot, so, and just come all the way down. I'll do a backward stitch there again. I'm just going to raise my needle out and continue to that one and go all the way around. Just make sure that my is lined up there. Right, so I'm just going to clip this. Make sure that I've catch everything on that. Now what you can do, just to neaten up your edges and to remove any bolts, is just trim it down. That's what I usually do. I think the other side is fine. The other thing you can do is also just snip away at the corners there, so that you can turn it right side out and you get a nice sharp point. And I'm just going to put my hand in, well, my fingers in this case, I don't think my hand will fit all the way through, and turn it right sides. And just making sure that you poke all of those corners out. Now this is a very simple way of making a slip pocket, so that you can use it inside the bag. I mean, for sometimes for small bags you don't necessarily need a slip pocket, but if you're obviously carrying little change, etc., in there, you don't want to be shuffling around just to get some change. Now what I have done is just where it's open there, sometimes it automatically just folds in, so it creates that automatic fold there. So I've just put it together and use my finger just to press it down. Now I'm just going to put that to the side for a moment, and we're going to focus on our linings. I'm just going to take one bit. So remember, we need 2 of this line. I'm just going to take one, and I'm going to put it face sides up so I can see all of the prettiness of the actual fabric. And I'm going to lay my pocket down. Now the easiest way of finding the center point of your pocket, and I'm just making sure that this is nicely seamed. Now you can iron this, yeah, so that you make sure it's nicely seamed there and it won't move. Just to make sure, I'm just going to pin that, because obviously I'm not going to iron this right now. So I'm just going to pin it just to ensure that it stays in place. Now we're going to put on our slip pocket, and the easiest way to do that is to fold it in half and find the middle point. And I'm just going to finger press it yet again and fold it back open, and I can see that there is a nice crease there, and I'm going to do the same for my pockets. Fold it in half, and this is just to make sure that everything lines up equally. and I am going to put it in as well. Now I'm going to average about 2 inches from the top down. That looks about 2 inches there for me. Let me just measure it very quickly. Yep, and I would say that's fine. Literally 2 inches. So I'm just going to pin that in place. And if you notice, I've actually put my pocket in upside down. What I mean by that is that that opening is at the bottom, and obviously, so when I go around, I will then be able to catch that opening when I do that top stitch there. So let's go back onto the machine, and again we are going to start with a reverse stitch just to ensure that that stays in position. And I'm just doing a 1/4 inch seam all the way around, and I'm going to pivot as soon as I get to the bottom. And hold it nice and firm so that it doesn't slip, or you know, it doesn't go wonky. So you're giving a nice straight stitch, and I'm using the edge of my presser foot as a guide, which is roughly a 1/4 inch seam, and I'm making sure I catch that fold seam. Again, I'm going to make sure that my needle is down, and I'm going to pivot and continue with my stitch. Once I get to the end, again I do a backward stitch just to make sure that that is sealed in there nicely, because those are the points where a lot of movement take place. So that is our pockets done. Now if you wanted to, you can put a straight line in the middle there, a straight stitch in the middle there, which I think will be a good idea to do. So I'm just going to, because then we can create 2 pockets. That's it, done. Now what I would like you to do in the meantime, once we've completed this, is we're going to get ready to box our corners out. And I've already done it with the front of the fabric, but I'll show you how to do it on the lining. So we're going to place both of the fabric front sides together. So you should not be seeing the pocket anymore, because you're going to have the top fabric on top of it. Place the front sides together. And I've already marked it out here. So we're going to do 2 inches. So 2 inches across. Come to that point and then mark it down. Same on this side, and mark it down. But before we actually stitch, I would say make sure this is lined up properly. And I'm just going to pin that there so that it doesn't move when I start stitching. Right, so what I need you to do is to go and get ready with that one. So once you've marked it out, you are going to now cut it out so that you know you have that box point ready, and then we will come back and move on to the next stage. Just take your time and cut on those lines. Alright, okay guys, so what we're going to do now is put our zip together on the front sides. We're going to work with the lining and the front of the fabric. Now let me just explain a few things. So I have already my front panel for my bag, where I've already boxed the bottom off, and I have also the lining for my bag where I have already boxed the bottom off and both of them have been boxed to 2 inches across and 2 inches down, so roughly in total a 4 inch. All right, and already have the lining on the front fabric for my bag. Now I've also added all of my little sort of handmade accessories or features that I actually put on my product. So if you've got those, you can add them now. So what we're going to do is to put our zip on. So we need to make sure that both of the fabrics are separate, so don't stitch anything together at the moment. All right, so in order to do this, we need to ensure that we have the fabrics facing us, so i.e. the pretty size looking at you. So I'm going to start with my front panel looking up at me, and I'm going to take my zipper and I'm going to put my pull on the right side facing down and line that up to the top of my fabric. Okay, so that's the front. So basically I am putting the front of my zipper facing down on top of the front of my panel, front of my panel from my front of my bag looking up at me. So I'll repeat that. So zipper pull on the right, going on top of my front panel for my bag, and then the lining then goes on top of that. So in effect you're creating a sandwich for these 3 items, and you're going to line them up and pin it at the top to ensure that it is nice and secure. Now just to be mindful also that the lining is going to be shorter because that's the way I have actually measured it. Okay, so it's not wrong, that's the way it's supposed to be. So just make sure it's centered, and then once you know you're okay with that, what you need to do now is use your wonder clips and just pin it on there so that it's nice and secure and it doesn't move. If you want to use pins, you can do that, but I find that the wonder clips works a lot more easily. Right, and so we're going to stitch. Now at this point you can put your zipper foot on, but if you don't want to do that or you haven't got that, then the next option is you can choose the position of your needle. Now most sewing machines have a middle section, a right and a left. So what I mean by that is that you can change the position of your needle. So in this particular instance, I'm going to put my fabric underneath on my sewing machine, and I'm going to move my needle to the left, so closest to the actual pull of the zip, so you can line it up and still get that sort of sewing style or stitching style as though you've added your zipper foot on. And you can actually hear me change that on my sewing machine. And then I'm going to start with my needle down. Now just make sure that your presser foot is then also lined up with the zipper pull also, so that once you start sewing it doesn't budge together, so you can pass it nice and smoothly. And as you sew, then you just remove your wonder clips, and again keep checking that everything is nicely lined up. Hold all 3 of them together and just sew a straight line. And as you can see there, that my presser foot is actually budged up right against my zippers, right, my zipper pull right there, so you can actually feel it get there. So that will enable you to stay nice and straight. Now when you get to this position, what you need to do is stop with your needle down, and what you can do is lift it up and just move the zipper a little bit down. Now if you think that it's a little bit giving you too much of resistance, just pull it out, move it underneath and just continue. Find your position back line everything back up again and just continue. Okay, and what you need to do now is have a quick check, and you can see that that has been stitched on quite nicely there. So that's the back, obviously, and this is the front. Okay, now to save time, what you can do is simply, and all I'm doing at the moment is just folding it over and finger pressing so that it stays down. Again, you can go to the iron and do this, but be mindful that you don't get your iron on your zipper pull there, because obviously that's plastic. So just be careful of that. Once you've done that, you go back to the machine, and again you can reposition your needle position. So mine is to the left at the moment, so I'm going to move mine to the right, so closer to the edge of the other side, so where I can actually do that top stitch nice and neat and tidy. And again, use the edge of your presser foot to line up with the edge of your fabric there, so everything stays nice and neat. Now just be mindful to check underneath to make sure that your lining is stretched out nice and smooth, and you get a nice lump-free stitch. Now what I tend to do when I'm doing this is to slightly just tug on my lining fabric so that I know it's nice and taut, so it's not crumbling up underneath. Again, also ensure that when you do this stitch, you can lengthen the stitch. So I'm going to lengthen mine to 3 because I don't want it too tight, and also keep it nice and straight because this is the front of the bag. And then you just continue stitching. And all I'm doing is literally pulling on that lining underneath. But if you don't do that, what tends to happen is that the fabric moves and it bundles up underneath there. Once you turn it around, you find it looks really thick. So just keep a pull on it so that it's nice and flat. Same applies, just move it back if you think that it's going to be in the way, that zipper pull, and just continue. Okay, so what you need to do now is move on to the next side, and then you can continue with that and do the other side. Okay guys, so we've added the first zipper on, well I should say the front fabric or the front panel onto the zipper. Let's do the other side. So the same thing applies. Excuse me. Now if you want, you can give this a little press so that it's neat and tidy. So the same thing applies. So again, you would put, so I'm going to put this, you would put your back panel on, because remember this side needs to be touching, so the both front panels need to be facing together down, right? So I'm going to put that in there. So if you've got a zipper pull that's got a big sort of round handle on it, make sure it lays nice and flush inside and not sticking out. All right, so I'm going to tuck that in there, and again the front goes down to the front of the other frontal panel, so both front panels together, line it up, and again the same thing applies for your lining fabric. That goes down also, and turn it round, and again, so remember you're sandwiching it. All right, so all I did is to repeat that. Both front sides are together, place it down, and this goes on top. So the same thing applies. So once we open it, we're going to have both front sides together, and then the other way as well. So again, position it, and excuse me, you can use the edge of your lining to line it up on the previous one, so you know where you stopped or where you line it up to. Same thing applies. Use your wonder clip to hold it in place so that you know where you are. And on this side as well. And again, you may also need to reposition your needle. So I'm just going to put it back there again. And because this is already on the left here, I'm just going to pull this back so that it's out the way. And I don't get it tripped up on my machine. Just getting rid of that piece of thread there. Again, put it down. Same applies, so you're budging up your presser foot with your zipper pull there. And I'm going to move my needle over to the left and continue. Making sure it's nice and flush and everybody is together. So all three of the fabrics are together, so your back panel as well as your zipper and the back panel for the lining. And just follow that guide all the way down. And sew it all the way off. And the same thing applies. So we're going to have to top stitch now. So again, you will hold the lining back. So remember, we're working with the back panel. We've already top stitched the front panel. Okay, so we're going to top stitch the back panel now. So hold that out, make sure it's nice and stretched out and smoothen out. Do the same thing, smoothing out this one as well. I'll press it all down, and again I'm using my finger just to press that down and push out any lumps there, because it does feel a little bit lumpy. And what makes it lumpy is the fact that you've stitched on the edge there, and so therefore it folds over. All right, so again, back under the machine, the same thing applies. You budge it up. Again, you're using the edge of your presser foot to the fold there where you've just stitched on your back panel to your zipper. And if you need to move it over to the left, mine's already to the left, so that's in position already. And then I will start to sew. Remember to hold your lining fabric a little bit firm so that it doesn't fold up, because the feed dogs will pull it in and bunch it up. So just keep it nice and firm and just take your time. So remember, this is the top part. This is going to be on show, so this needs to be done accurately. Take your time so it's nice and neat. And notice I am going slowly, I'm not rushing it, because I'm doing a lot of things here at the moment. So I'm putting this and making sure the fabric is smooth, and you can see I'm using my fingers to smoothen it out. Okay, all done. So our zipper is on, nice and neat, nice and flush. It opens without any hiccups, so it's nice and smooth there and no problems. Okay, now the next thing for us to do is to pull this out right side out, which I haven't done mine as yet. Okay guys, so I have unraveled my shoulder strap here, or handle strap. Okay, so remember we stitched it front sides together, so it was both front sides together, lay flat and stitch all the way around on both edges. Okay, all the way around on both edges, and be left opening there and opening on this side, so both ends was opening. And then I use a safety pin, pin one edge and literally just shove it through until I pull it through on the other side. And then the next thing I did was to put it flat and then iron it, so then I can have both my edges nice and flat. So all the edges here, so it's not rolled and I'm seeing, and it's not like that, so to speak. All right, so now we're going to put this on now, and our bag is almost done. So lay it open and we're going to put this down. So I'm just tidying up all of my little bits of threads hanging out. Now what we need to do is to put this like that, so the wrong side, not the wrong side, sorry, the lining goes down on the edge, and we're going to stitch across. I'm going to pin it there on one side and pin it there on the other side with my wonder clip. Just be mindful that your zipper pull starts there. So what I'm going to do is just put a little reminder there for me, so I know not to go over that when I am sewing. So I'm going to put that back in there so it stays in place, and then I'm going to stitch, put it down, line it up with the edge. Everything lines up to the edge of my presser foot there, and I know I can see my mark there where my pull is, so I'm not going to go there so I don't break my needle. And I'm going to start, and I'm going to go back again, remove that now because I think it's nice and secure, and I'm going to come to the end and reverse back so that I can get a nice secure stitch on there. Come to the end and I'm going to reverse again, making sure it's nice and secure. Do about 3 times. Okay, I'll snip that off. You probably can't see my stitches because I'm using white thread, and again you can use, you know, whatever color thread you want so that it blends in with the color of your actual bag. Right, the next side needs to be done now, so again make sure that you fold it down, and when I say fold it down, make sure you're not turning it where you can see the lining color of your handle, so you want to see the top side. So again, same thing applies. However, because we have the zipper pull on this side, it might be a little bit difficult. So just give yourself some room, pull it down, and just close it in with your fingers so that it stays together. And the same thing applies. Center it and pin it down with your wonder clip so it stays in place. I think the wonder clips are a lot more easier in this particular case here rather than using pins. And again, I'm going to sort of mark where I know that little zipper pull is, so I don't go beyond that. Now, if you wanted to use a heat erasable pen, you can, but I don't see a big fuss at this particular point because I'm just putting a little mark there. Obviously, it depends on the color of your fabric. Mine is blue, so sorry, my pen is blue, and it's not really showing up there, so it's really tiny. So I'm going to remove that again and do the same and reverse it back, go forward, reverse it back, okay, just to make sure that stitch is nice and secure. And then clip that off. Now we're almost there, so our handles are now securely sewed on. So really all we need to do now is just close the bag up and we will be finished. So what we need to do is turn the bag facing up. So again, I'm just clipping all of my threads off because it really does annoy me. Right, and I'm going to pull the bags together. So I'm going to fold it over like so. Now making sure that the handle is nicely tucked in, and I'm going to use my Wonder Clip again and just clip this side down here. And if you got some pins on hand, again you can do the same. I'm going to make sure you line everything up and pin it. No, and it should, because you would have measured this together so that once you have laid it on, remember before you did your box bottom, so that it was nicely measured correctly. I'm just going over mine to make sure it is pinned on together accurately. I'm just releasing and just checking everything line up. And you do the same for the lining fabric. Now we need to be, the lining fabric is going to be done slightly different. So the lining fabric is going to be done slightly different. So meaning that we're going to leave an opening so we can turn the bag over. And again, I'm just pinning it so that it stays in place. So just like we did before, where we left an opening for the slip pockets, we're going to do that for the lining fabric as well. And this opening needs to be slightly bigger because we need to get our hand in there so that we can turn it right side out. Okay, I'm going to go back to my pen now, and it's a good idea to use some sort of marking because you will forget, because I have done it many times and I just closed it up and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, now I have to unpick it and get it all done again. So always mark it so that once you see it, you know you've got to stop. So we're going to start on this side and just fold in that area there where your handle sits. It's going to be a little bit thick, so I would say if you know you haven't got a denim size needle on there, now is the time to change it because it needs to go through that bulk. But I will show you how to do that quite easily. So I'm not going to start on that bulk. I'm just going to start slightly. Oh, before we do that, very important, we need to make sure that our zip is open. So make sure that the bag is open. And I'm going to open up that, pull it right in the middle. Otherwise, we won't be able to turn the bag right side out. And then make sure that the zipper pull lines up nicely, and you put it down, and then you start to sew. And take your time. I can actually hear that box, so what I'm going to do is walk it over. It will still stitch, it's just stitching under your control. So just turn your handle and walk it over so that the power of the machine does not break the handle. And once you think you're away from that danger, then you can continue to sew as normal. And I think I'm away, and there I go. Just continue. I can see my threads beginning to act up. Reverse stitch that end as well. Break the thread. And you do the same for the next side. I didn't change my needle position back, so I'll just put it back to center. Not that it actually matters on this one because I'm just closing up a seam basically, so it's not a big deal. And go over again, walk it through to that thick area so it doesn't break your needle. I mean, if you want to chance it and go through it, you're more than welcome to, but from experience it does do that sometimes, so it's best to walk it through. And once you've walked it through, you can go back and just go over it, but because I know it's on securely there, I don't never really do that, to be honest. Okay, we'll take that out. And we're going to close the bottom part now completely. So again, all I'm doing is lining up the edge of the fabric to the edge of my presser foot, and that's roughly about a 1/4 inch seam, back stitch all the way down. So we do not leave an opening on this one because obviously this is the actual front of the bag. You can remove your pins at this stage. And what we're going to do now is actually close these bottoms now. So you line up both of your seams there and you fold one left and one right to ensure that's done accurately. Make sure it's lined up nice and flat. One goes left, one goes right. Make sure those seams are matched up. And then you stitch. And if you wanted to pin it in place so that it doesn't move, because of the actual interfacing in there, it does make it slide. So I'm just going to pin it because I've noticed as soon as I put it down it moved. So I'm just going to pin it there so it stays in place, and when I start stitching then I will remove it. So again, line up your fabric, reverse stitch at the start, and then you go all the way through. Backward stitch at the end. Okay, you do the same for the next side. Line up those seams, put one of the seam that you just stitched left and the other one right, pin it, line up the fabric to the edge of the presser foot, reverse your stitch, click that off. And you will do the same for the next part of the bag. So the only difference is that we're going to start where we stopped there. Whoopsie daisy. Again, walk that through. And when you get down, come off, and then remember on the lining now we need to leave room for that opening. So there, I just did a backward stitch there, and I'm not going to break through. I'm just going to move down to the next point, reverse stitch, come all the way over, I'm just cutting my threads there, and do the next seam on this side, and all the way down. Now we just need to box the corners. We are almost completed with this bag. Again, line up all of your seams. and on the next side. There is a lot of clipping when you're making bags, especially at the threads. Excuse me, and I'm sneezing. Now we have our opening there. So this is where we put our hands through. Now it's going to be a little bit tiny, so I'm just going to use my fingers and squeeze the bag through. And hopefully my stitching is good and there's no tearing sound. Otherwise we'll have to go back in and do another stitch on it. We'll just take your time and keep pulling it through very slowly. Probably it's better if you put the bag down rather than do it in the air, because then you've got a little bit support. I mean, once you've got the majority through, then the rest of it is not that easy. Take the handle out, because that can take up some space as well. We're almost there. This is where you see if all your stitching has been good. There we go. Right, so all I'm going to do now is put my hand back in and I'm poking out these corners. Just push every corner out. Now what we need to do is to go back in and close that up. Now you can hand stitch if you want, or you can machine stitch, which I usually do. So once everything is neat and tidy, you can give your bag a little press, and here you go. That is your bag completed. A nice little crossbody bag, very similar, in fact identical to the first one I made. And there you go. So if you enjoyed this video and you had a good time making your bag, please don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, share your ideas with me on Instagram. The link is below, and I hope you enjoy your bag. Take care. Bye bye.